Hello everyone, good afternoon. By way of a little introduction, I'm just going to play a short piece before I start to talk, and it's a piece called Beatriz. It's written by a Brazilian composer, Chico Buarque, just to show that there's more to Brazil than just football. Thank you very much. My name is Matthew Barley, and I'd like to talk to you today about how all musical notes in the entire world are contained within one note. In fact, any note. And the way this happens is through a series of notes called the Harmonic series, and first of all, I need to tell you about overtones. Now, when any note is sounded, hidden in the note, a little like the whole spectrum of the rainbow is hidden within white light. Hidden within any note is a series of overtones, and I can illustrate this series on a cello, also with a little bit of help from a diagram. And the top of the diagram will show an open string, just resonating from end to end with no impedance at all. The second one down shows what happens when I touch the string lightly halfway up, as opposed to pressing it down like I do when I normally play. So I touch the string, and just touching it allows the string to vibrate both sides of that central point. That's exactly halfway. Then I can touch the string exactly a third of the way, and get a higher note, a quarter. That's the fourth one down. Fifth, sixth, seventh, and then off the diagram, but it continues. And theoretically, it goes on forever, but I'm limited by my string and the cello. But it is a series that sort of spirals upwards, and as you could hear, the notes get ever closer together. So how does that show that a note contains all the notes in the world? Well, the first thing you have to realize, and I've heard people talk about this before, but it's the fact that there are, in fact, only 12 notes in the whole of music. Every piece of music you have ever heard is made up of the same 12 notes. Now, of course, they can be higher and lower and played on many different instruments and played at the same time, but there are only 12 notes. And to show you the way this works, I'll just come over to the piano. So I'm just very anxious that everybody in the room understands, not just those with musical training. So if we hear, let's take an A, and I play upwards every note from there. That's 12. And the 13th is back to the beginning of the cycle. I know I'm not lang lang, but it just about does for this purpose. So this A is repeated there. And I'm sure that you can all hear, if I play all the A's on the piano, that they're kind of a set of the same thing. In physical terms, this A vibrates at 220 hertz per second. This one is simply double, 440 hertz per second, as opposed to a collection of notes like which is very, that's quite nice there, which is very obviously a set of very different notes. So we have 12 notes to find in our harmonic series altogether before we can prove that, in fact, one note does contain all the notes in the world. So let's just start on this one, the top string. The first one we found is, in fact, the same note. Again, it's that one octave higher, the measurement of distance between a note and the same one the next up. The next harmonic, this is an E. That's a different note. So we have A and E. The next one is another A, got already. Here a C sharp, so that's 3 out of the 12. That's another E, we've got that one already. That's a G, and so on and so forth. You get the picture. If you go far enough up the series, you have all of the 12 notes. So this in itself is quite an extraordinary fact, that everything is contained within the one. But maybe more interesting is the fact that it's had an incredibly large influence on music throughout the world, throughout different eras, throughout different genres. We tend to think of music as very much separated into different worlds, different eras, different cultures, different countries. And while, of course, there are separations, to me it's much more interesting that they are all united by these exactly same 12 notes. The effects that this had on music is quite tricky to explain, but it goes something like so. If we go back to our series, you'll remember that the third note was the first one that was different from the first, because the second was the octave above. So the first note that we have that's different from that root note, it's called a fifth up, the fifth degree of the scale. And as soon as we leave our root note, it's a little like leaving home. There is immediately some kind of gravitational pull to return. Whenever we go on a journey, sooner or later, all being well, we are going to want to come home, and music is exactly the same. So if I take a very, very simplistic example, in fact, written by Mozart, we go from the first to the fifth, and straight away, that gravitational pull that all music has inside us brings us back home. This is not to say that all music always comes back to its root, because a very, very powerful emotional device in music is actually to leave the music somewhere else. That gives a great sense of longing, but that's not exactly what we're talking about now. We're talking about this polarity between the root, the fifth, and back again to the root. So just also to illustrate that this phenomenon of the root to the fifth is not culturally specific. That's a bit of Mozart, very much in the European tradition. Some years ago, I spent a couple of weeks in Colombia with the Kogi Indians, who are an extraordinary tribe who had no contact with the Europeans at all until the 1970s. I played with the musicians. They were a wonderful bunch. I taught them how to say wicked at the end of the pieces, which was great fun. And every single one of their pieces, without exception, began with this little sort of clarion call of root to fifth and back again. It's something that happens all over the world. Why? Because it's contained, it's hardwired into every single note. So if you pick up a bottle or a wooden flute or a gourd or pluck a piece of string or blow a reed in the wind, whatever note you're playing, singing, plucking, hitting, there will be a fifth contained in it as the first harmonic up that's the loudest. So everywhere, anywhere, musicians are going to hear that note and naturally want to go there and naturally want to come back again. And I'd like to have a quick look now about how this works in a more complex piece of arts music. Bach's first Prelude in G. One of the most famous pieces, I think, written for cello. In this piece, we have 3 different layers of 1 to 5. The micro layer is right here, the root note, and the fifth, straight away. The second layer up takes the first 4 bars, the first sort of 4 little pockets of music, or phrases. It's chord 1, now chord 4, chord 5, and back to 1. So there we have a slightly longer journey, but it's still 1, by way of 4 up to 5. Chord 5 is the chord built on the note 5, and back to 1. And then the most spectacular version of our root going to the fifth and wanting to come back home can be found at the middle of the piece. This rippling motion of notes carries on until the middle, and it suddenly stops. And when a composer makes a sudden change, you know that he's telling you something important is happening. And in this case, he's wanting us to listen to this last note, which is, of course, the fifth. And then there's a little silence in which Bach wants us, he's inviting us to hear this note ringing on. And music carries on, but Bach is wanting us to hear this D all the way through. And in order to achieve this, I run out of hands, so I'm going to have to get you to sing this D for me, please. So this is your note, and here we go. La. Oh, that's very disappointing. Okay, could you all stand up, please? We need to breathe before we sing. It's been a long day, I know. I'll let you go soon. So I'm going to get you to sing this note again, and then I'm going to play all the rest of the piece with you singing this note. And I want you to listen to all the different departures and returns, the sort of arcs of tension and release that are created between your pedal note and my movement. So here's the D, breath in, la. That's lovely. Keep that going. Breathe if you have to. Keep going. And keep going. And now sing la. Yeah, fantastic. Wonderful. I'd love to take you all on tour with me. That's fantastic. And it's lovely for me to actually play it like that, because then I really hear all the different lines between. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. I'm going to play the Bach Prelude now for you. And when we get there, I would invite you to hear that note as much as you can inside your ears, so that you really hear the fundamental sort of participation. And I'd leave you with one last thought. I was asked to try and tie this into democracy and representation. Little bit tenuous, but then again, in a democratic country, you need one leader, and you need the participation of the whole country to vote. And of course, we have one note, but every note in the world is represented within that one note. So maybe we're there.